Are you in danger of losing your home? Attorney Eric Olsen, Executive Director of the Helps nonprofit law firm, wants seniors facing the loss of their homes to know the many ways they could avoid foreclosure. In the first part of my interview with the former bankruptcy attorney, he explained various methods including mortgage modification, property tax deferral, and reverse mortgages. The link to that video is in the description below. In this conclusion of our interview, we discuss other methods that could save your home, or save enough money to get you into another home. We'll also share how Eric's law firm could help you at no charge. Because of social distancing, we'll be conducting the interview via Zoom.
Well, first off, I don't want to make any decision for anyone. People have to make up their own minds on this kind of stuff. And a lot of people, there's in some way they're able to work things out. Maybe a kid comes in and lives with them and helps contribute to the payment. Maybe some people rent out a room. And they do a lot of creative things to try to keep the home, which is wonderful. But if none of that is possible, and if they have equity in the home, then they could consider selling the home and pulling out the equity and getting more affordable housing, whether buying another place or renting someplace. They could consider doing that rather than ultimately letting it go through foreclosure and keep them on missing payments. They could do that. They could consider selling the home if they have enough equity.
And I'm sure there are people you talk to who wouldn't even know what equity is or how they'd know if they had it or not.
Well, okay, just to be clear, equity is if you take how much you owe on the home, okay, you take that away from how much the home is worth. And the difference is your equity. So for example, if you have a home that you owe that you owe 100,000 on, and it's worth 200,000, you have $100,000 in equity. Now, that's the equity. Now, how do you determine what your equity is? Well, right now you can just type your address on the internet, the address where you live, and boom, a website will come up. One would be Zillow. Another one might be Realtor.com. There's several of them. And if you look at them, these are websites where they'll have a picture of your house. I talk to people and I say, "Oh, you've got a real nice house," and they're surprised because I see it on the internet, and it'll show how much the home, this website believes their home is worth. And these websites are they're better than nothing. They're pretty accurate. I suppose a senior could talk to a realtor and ask them, realistically, if my home were going to sell within the next 90 days, what could I get for it? But the first step would be to look at a website like Zillow to find out what their home is worth, subtract what they owe. That's their equity.
And then what about a situation where they really don't have equity, that there's no reason to sell because it's not going to put stuff in their pocket?
So this is where it can become kind of a balancing act. So let's say, for example, you've got a home and the equity is questionable, but there's some question about it. There's some equity, but maybe not a whole lot. Well, a person could make a decision to live in the home, to stay there while it's going through foreclosure. Okay. So if the payment's like $1,000 a month, that's a little high, but let's say it is. And it took 18 months to foreclose, where you had to leave and you didn't make that, you just save $1,800 and you saved $1,000 a month. That's 18, what is 1,000 times 18,000. It's a lot of money. So, whereas if they sold it and they're only going to get 5,000, it might be better for them not to sell the home, but to live there free while it's going through foreclosure, save the money up. They would get more money that way. So that's kind of a factor they need to determine, is how much they would actually get versus staying there. Now, is there a problem with you staying in the home if you don't make the payment? Is that some way a bad thing? Absolutely not. I've talked to a lot of lenders, and if people are behind on the payment, if it's going through foreclosure, they would much prefer that someone is living in the home than the home would be vacant. If it's vacant, they have to change the locks. They have to have someone inspect it. It's subject to vandalism. No one there to cut the grass. So they're happy to have you stay there while it's going for foreclosure. I talk to a lot of people that are able to stay in a home for not 1 year, but 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 9 years. It's surprising how long people can stay in a home while it's going through foreclosure.
If they do have any moral qualms about it, like you said, just occupying the home gives the lender some assurance that the house isn't being vandalized.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, if you're in the home and a golden opportunity came up, you don't have to stay in the home, you move. But if you can save money by staying in the home while it's going through foreclosure, go for it. And then set the money aside. It'll help you when you have to move.
And now, if I stop making my car payments and I parked it on the street, the dealer could come and repossess it. There's certain rules about that. But with a house, it's not like living in a house that's been foreclosed upon, like you're going to come home and the locks have been changed. The banks have to follow certain rules, and you'll have plenty of notification when you do eventually have to be kicked out.
Exactly right. And no one really gets kicked out. I mean, there's all kinds of, nothing happens like that. You get lots of notices and there's plenty of time.
Well, many seniors had a whole lifestyle where they were proud of paying their bills on time, and they may think, this is not the way they saw their life going. So you reassure them that there's nothing wrong with doing, following along these lines of living in a house while it's being foreclosed upon, just so you can get your act together to find another place.
No, it's nothing wrong with that at all. This happens all the time. It's part of the contract you signed when you bought the home. It says if you can't make the payment, then this is what happens. This is what happens if we have to take the home back. It goes through this time period. So no, it's part of the contract. It's nothing for them to feel guilty about. They may feel bad about it, yes, but life goes on. It's not the end of the world.
And then for some people, it's different if they're just alone and single versus if they're in a relationship with a spouse, or they share living quarters with someone. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is an important thing to talk about that isn't talked about a lot, and it's a factor. So let's say a senior couple comes to me or comes to Helps, and they're both on Social Security, and that's it. But they're buying a home. Let's say the husband gets $1,800 in Social Security, the wife gets $1,200, and maybe the house payment is $800. If the husband passes away before the wife, which is the common example I use, then the surviving spouse will get the higher of the two Social Securities. Okay. So in that event, the wife will get the husband's Social Security of $1,800, but hers goes away. Now, depending on how much the husband gets, the surviving spouse gets for Social Security, that may not be enough. That may not be enough to keep up with the house payment. It may really put the wife in a really difficult position. She can't afford the house payment. So it's really important that seniors, maybe husbands and wives, we don't die at the same time, is that be a factor into the determination. So if they looked at it and they said, well, honey, if I pass away before you're not gonna be able to keep this house. And if they could get a reverse mortgage, maybe they do that. And that way, when the husband passes away, the house payment is resolved and she wouldn't have to worry about that. Or they might decide, well, why we've got this good equity in this home, why don't we sell it? We'll get something that's more affordable so that when I pass on, you're not going to have to move. These are just things seniors need to be thinking about.
And then finally, in this age of COVID, it sort of changed some of the rules about foreclosures and whatnot. So what do seniors need to know about that?
Well, okay, so it's called the CARES Act, and it may get extended, but it looks like it's expiring here real quick. And what it's done up to now is that government insured loans, there's been a foreclosure forbearance and a procedure for seniors to get their house payments postponed. They put on hold, and foreclosures haven't started yet. But the lenders have been encouraged to work with the person who's had their loans postponed or put off to modify the loans so they can get back on track. But unlike back in 2008, there's nothing specific. They're not required to do anything specific. So they, like we talked about this a few minutes ago, they may agree to put it at the end of the mortgage. They may not. It's not guaranteed. Now, I think close to 2/3 of mortgage loans are insured by government, covered by this, but maybe a third or a quarter aren't, and they're not under this. But some of them have voluntarily agreed to work with seniors or work with people on mortgage foreclosure forbearance. You can study it out on the internet. You got to be careful of people trying to help you. A lot of them could be scams. But this is going to sort itself out. And I think generally, if you're able to resume the payments, you're probably going to be able to keep the home in one fashion or another. I don't think the lenders really want to foreclose on the home.
And so you've had many dealings with seniors who've had these experiences. Do they know all these options? Are they aware? Is it something that they can do better, like more knowledge will help them get out of the situation?
Well, no, they don't. And that's why I'm so grateful for Senior Living to helps inform seniors about these options. A lot of them don't realize about things, what they can do. I'll give you an example. I've talked to some seniors, for example, that have a house payment they really can't afford, and maybe there's not that much equity. And what they've done is they've dipped into maybe a 401k or some other form of retirement to keep making that interest payment on that house. And then when that money's gone, that little nest egg is gone, and they still have a house payment they can't afford. So maybe if they did some planning before that, that might have been a better thing to do. So if you've got a house payment you can't afford, it's really important to try to get in a situation so that you can get that problem resolved in one fashion or another.
Great. And how can the Helps nonprofit law firm help people who are facing
foreclosure? Well, our specific, what we do is we represent seniors who owe debt they can't afford to pay, who receive Social Security, pension, disability, and disabled persons too, in order they have an attorney so that debt collectors can no longer bother them. Under federal law, if a person is represented by an attorney, debt collectors can't call that person or send them demand letters. So that's what we do. And we inform the senior, hey, your income's protected. It can't be taken. Even if you get sued, it can't be taken. Explain why their money in their bank account is protected. And then our second function is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's what we're doing here today. We're trying to educate seniors that how they can be financially independent. And part of that is having a house payment that they can afford. And it's important because that's where the big payment is in the budget. And if they can get that resolved, then a lot of pressure is taken off them.
And how can people reach out to Helps?
We're all over the internet. Our website is www.helpsishere.org, HELPSISHERE.org. And they can call us toll free at 855-HELPS, HELPS-US, or Helps Us. And we're a 501c charity. We don't turn any senior away that needs the help we provide. We're there for that. We're there for them. As far as I know, we're the only law firm in the nation that does what we do. And if seniors don't need our help, we want them to share with other seniors what we do, because there's just a lot of seniors that call us and they're so thankful to find out about Helps and get this information. And so we want people to share what we do, Jeff, and I appreciate you helping us do that.
Well, thank you for taking the time and imparting your knowledge to everyone. You take care. Thanks again for everything.
Thanks, Jeff.